So this demonstration here is this. If we go into the legalistic manner of saying, my dog is to do a full mouth bite, where the canines pass over the main tissue, right? And we're clamping down with the molars for high pressure, and the job of the dog is to detain the person so that we can arrest them while delivering the least amount of damage to the person as possible, because it's only for detention. And when we go into the courtroom, we don't want to have the dog bit the dude 13 times all over his body. We need one bite, right? So that way, in the courtroom, we are good to go to defend the department, and the dog is expendable, the dog is a piece of equipment, and this is how it needs to be. I go, okay, that's a valid argument, right? And I'm not saying that, this isn't me trying to contradict how other people train their dogs to do bites and their approach to it. It's just another thing of thinking about it, and if you have a way you like your dog to bite, you can take what I'm going to show you today and still integrate it with your style of training or your philosophy on that. But what we're going to show is where we can start to look at the life safety of the dog, right? My approach to dog training is very simple. I didn't have any sport background in dogs. I basically just came from what we were doing in the SEAL teams, and I go, if I was training this dog to be one of the commandos with me and the boys on the team, how would I approach it? And with like an extensive background in combatives and all that kind of stuff, right? There's certain things that just seem really common sense to me, okay? Because I know, again, I don't ask the dog to do something that I wouldn't do. If you said, Rich, I need you to put that guy in an arm bar, right? Or in a street fight, and I go to put a dude in an arm bar, right? You know, arm bar, like we're trying to break their elbow, right? Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or something like that. If I'm going to put a dude in an arm bar, right? I have one arm secured, maybe I have his body partially secured, and here I am wrenching it on the arm bar. And he's like, this thing's gonna break my elbow, and he pulls a knife out, and he goes like this, and he reaches over and stabs me in the stomach or maybe the lobe of my thigh, right? My reaction most likely is not going to be, if I just pull the arm a little bit harder, he'll stop stabbing me. Maybe my first reaction might be like that, then I get stabbed again. And I'm like, I just got to wrench this harder, and now I pop his elbow out of the socket, right? And now his elbow's kind of backwards, and I'm yanking it like sideways now, and then he stabs me again, and I'm like, crap, and then I start spinning his forearm around and like trying to rip his arm off at the joint, right? And then he keeps stabbing me. At what point in time do I go, the arm bar is an inefficient attack against his knife attack, right? By me trying to put him in an arm bar, this isn't stopping him from stabbing me, right? And my arm bar doesn't work if I get stabbed to death. You know what I mean? Like if we were to look at it like in that aspect, you're like, well, would anyone continue to do the arm bar if the dude's stabbing you with the other hand? Or would you go, I have to change my game plan, this obviously isn't working, right? So if we're talking about the life safety of the dog, or we're talking about a family home protection dog, right? We take the legalistic aspect out of it, right? And go, what is going to preserve the life of the dog? Because one of the things to keep in mind is, if I'm sending the dog as a security layer between me and the other officers, right? If the dog's dead, I lose that layer of security. The dog does me no good if it's dead, right? So I need the dog to stay alive, even if it's not doing that solid bite that we want. Once the knife comes out and it's doing multiple bites and it's now fighting, it's keeping the person occupied so they're not using the knife on me. And it prolongs the life and the fight within the dog. Even if the dog gets stabbed and winds up bleeding out, right? The dog is going to die way quicker if it stays there holding on versus if it lets go and moves, okay? Another example of this, which we're not really going to show here today, but it's under the same philosophy. So the dog Miko, that's standing over top of the other dog in that photo, Miko is my primary working dog. She's retired now. But when I did training with Miko, up in New Jersey one time, we were in this junkyard and there was a bad guy and he was up in the back of a pickup truck, like a utility truck that had those big like toolbox things that go down the side. And then it had one of those racks that you put like ladders on or piping like up on the rack. And so he's up there in the back of the truck and she's got to launch into the pickup truck over the tailgate and get into the truck with him and try to fight this dude. But he's got his hands up here on the racks out of the way, and he's kind of using that as like leverage to move, and the truck is filled with snow and ice, and it's real cold up there. So she launches in, and she can't get to his arm, so she does a bite on his leg, right? And everyone talks about like, hey dude, you gotta be careful, you're gonna break the dog, right? Ever heard the term like breaking the dog? And if the dog loses, it's never gonna fight again, it's gonna be scared, right? I kind of disagree with that, just from a combative standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to go fight in the UFC, I don't want to have all of my training always wearing pads and Thai boxing with guys who have shin pads on, and I'm wearing shin pads, and then the first time I go to check a kick, it's shin to shin, bone to bone, and I'm like, oh, like, and I can barely stand. Or the first time I actually get punched in the face without headgear on is when I'm standing in the octagon. Like, that's not a good train up. Like, I need to get my ass kicked a couple times to go, dude, I need to respect that. I don't respect certain strikes if I've never felt them, right? So I start building up a false sense of security of how much of a badass I am. Everyone heard that saying, like, yeah, dude, everyone's got a strategy until you get punched in the face. Yeah, like, there's truth to that. So if I've never been punched in the face, how do I even know what my strategy is? You know what I mean? Like, I need to take a little damage to learn more about myself, right? How do I ever know if I'm a true warrior if I've never actually been hammered a little bit, right? And coming back from getting hammered is where I build that confidence in myself as a fighter. So Miko jumps in the back of this truck, and she does a bite and hold on this dude's leg. And she's just holding, and what Chris does, the dude who was in the suit, he basically pins her against the side. He's using these freaking, this rack to get leverage, and he pins her right across her neck, and she's doing a bite and hold, and he pins her right into the side of the pickup truck. And he just starts choking her out. And she's on, and she won't let go. She's on there holding on for dear life. If I just bite his leg harder, this will stop. And it didn't stop. So what happened is, he wound up choking her to the point where she just blew her like anal gland, and she pissed herself and pooped all over the place, and I'm not like promoting that, right? But right when that happened, then he lets her off, and she like backed up and looked at him like, holy crap. And I called her out, and she comes running back to me, and she's like, running all wiggly because she's just about to pass out, right? And she comes back, and she looks at me, she's like, dude, what the hell just happened? I'm like, dude, you just got choked out, that's what happened. And she's like, oh my God, that was so scary. I'm like, yeah, man, that was scary. This is a conversation we had. I always had thought we were having a conversation, right? And I'm just like, Miko, what are you doing, dude? Like, you can't just hold on for dear life. This dude's gonna choke you out. Like, you gotta do something. Like, if you're gonna die, figure it out. But you can't just hang on there and freaking die. It doesn't do either of us any good. And she's like, holy crap, well, that was really intense. And then we go back into what was the very first thing that we talked about with the ladder. Like, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do. So what I do at this point, all right, well, now that dude messed with you, he messed with me. I say we team up. Let's go beat the crap out of this dude. She's like, yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty tough. I'm like, yeah, but we're pretty tough too, right? So now what we do is we run back and we charge the truck. We give her like 15, 20 minutes to kind of regroup. And then Chris is back there in the truck, F you, blah, 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 right? Like, dude, that's my truck, I need you to get out. You know what I mean? So we run back in, we jump into the truck, and I'm in there just jacking Chris, fighting Chris. And now, as I'm fighting Chris, she's taking the advantage of like, yeah, I'm gonna sneak attack him while you got him distracted. Now we're working Chris over as a team. Build up that confidence again. I'm not gonna ask you to do anything I wouldn't do. I'm here with you, right? Build her confidence back up. And while I'm fighting Chris has got her, and he'll try to swing her around to the side of the truck, and then she'll jump her hips over and swing into this way so that she's on his leg, but she's not in between the side of the truck and his leg. Does that make sense? Then what happens is, we do it again, but this time I run up and I'm waiting right outside the bed of the pickup truck. Get him, right? I'm cheering her on from right there at the side of the pickup truck, and she's fighting. Then we go back to the point where I'm like 30 yards away, kneeling, looking past the corner of the building. I have her next to me, and I'm like, are you ready? I need you to go. And I take her from here, and I send her from around the corner. She runs 30 yards, jumps into the truck, she fights him, and now as Chris tries to move him into the corner of the truck, she won't allow herself to be pinned anymore. She keeps spinning, and we call it reversing. She reverses, right? If he tries to pick her up or like try to choke her out, at that point in time, she'll release, but she's not trying to get away out of the truck. She's just circling and then re-engaging. Right? And you could say that that's the dog being afraid to commit to a bite, or whatever, but the dog is charging the truck, jumping into the bed, locked in the box, still engaging, but what I want the dog to do is to think. I want the dog to be watching, just as if I come from the position of, I've been Thai boxing, right? And in the Thai boxing ring, it's one-on-one. I don't worry about anyone else in the crowd. I'm listening for my coach, and maybe I'm eavesdropping on what the other coach is saying so I can see what he's trying to tell his fighter, right? So I can hear and try to counter what the other coach is telling. But other than that, everyone else I'm ignoring, right? But now in a street fight, as I'm fighting, if I'm grappling with a person and fighting for position, my eyes, instead of watching the attacker, they're going back and forth from the attacker to the crowd, because what am I anticipating?
Somebody else jumping in.
Yeah, I'm anticipating his buddy smacking me in the head with a bottle or cheap shotting me or something like that. So I need to be multitasking, and I'm watching as I'm fighting, and watching and looking at him, I'm feeling him, I'm watching, right? So we want the dog to start paying attention, right? For multiple reasons, because maybe there's another attacker coming to get me, and I need a dog to come off and come save me, right? And not just stay in the bite the whole time until someone manually yanks the dog off. That dog might be like, yeah, this person's no longer a threat. Oh crap, someone's attacking my handler, and the dog does a Manning drill and comes off and runs over and starts hitting the guy that's now the new threat. Does that make sense? So what I want the dog to do is to be a thinker. I want the dog's eyes to be looking around, trying to figure out what's going on, not to be afraid and running, but I just want them to fight smart, so that way it increases the odds of their survival and mine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? So what I show you here, again, this dog's about a year old.